Elon Musk just smashed another record, crossing $500 billion in net worth. Now, you and me? We're debating whether a $5 Steam game is worth buying.
You're broke! You're f***ing poor!
Now, most rich people don't get there from launching rockets into space. There's a much easier way that you can take advantage of with just a little spare cash. In fact, this wealth building tool has been called the 8th wonder of the world. Stick around to see how compound interest can help your financial goals, and for fun, we're going to see how long it would take you to become a trillionaire. It's actually a lot faster than you might think. So, $500 billion is a little hard to fathom. To put that into perspective, if you made $100,000 per day since the birth of Jesus Christ, you'd have less than a fifth of what Elon has. It's especially hard to believe he could be so rich when he's never even done a money spread. But when we break down the numbers, it makes sense. The secret to becoming a trillionaire? Just co-found like 10 of the most successful companies on Earth. Since many of his companies like SpaceX and X, and isn't one of his kids named X? And apparently PayPal was originally called X.com, and Tesla makes a Model X. This guy really likes the letter X. Anyway, since many of his companies are private, it's hard to get an exact breakdown, but the majority of his wealth is in Tesla stock and options. Only a couple $1 billion is in cash and other assets. But Elon didn't get here overnight. He co-founded an internet company called Zip2, which ended up being sold to Compaq for $370 million, of which Elon got $22 million in cash. He then used that money to co-found PayPal, which was eventually acquired by eBay for $1.5 billion, of which Elon got around $180 million. From there, he used that money to sorta co-found Tesla and start SpaceX and the other companies you know about today. Imagine you had a friend who, after winning millions of dollars at the casino multiple times, kept going back and going all in. What a psycho. The absolute madman kept doing it. This path to financial success is in stark contrast to the average American, however. Recent studies estimate that a pretty staggering 18% of American households are millionaires. But that number is a little misleading. First of all, that's for households, not individuals. Second of all, I know what you're thinking. Oh, $1 million isn't that much these days. Yeah, you're not exactly loaded with $1 million in the year of our Lord 2025, but it's still a pretty comfortable amount of money for most people. Third of all, this $1 million includes home equity. If you bought a house 30 years ago in basically any major metropolitan area in the United States, you probably have at least $500,000 in home equity. Unless you took out a line of credit against the house for renovations or other activities. Only 2.5 to 3.7% of American adults are quote-unquote liquid millionaires. Liquid meaning the money is in investable assets like stocks. This number is a little more depressing. Don't give up though. I'm about to break down the math on how you can get there yourself. Unless you're like 80 years old and broke, then you're cooked.
Okay, we are cooked.
There's a term people throw around a lot when talking about personal finance. It's the secret weapon normal people have to get rich. It's called compound interest. Interest is just a fee paid to borrow money. When you put your money in a savings account, the bank doesn't just pay you interest out of the goodness of their hearts. That is the fee that you're essentially charging them to let them borrow your money, and then they'll use that money to try and make a return on it for themselves. I could make a half-hour-long video on how much of a scam this is, but I'll save that for another time. There's simple interest and compound interest. Simple interest is interest paid on your principal. The principal is the amount of money you put in. So, if you earn 5% simple interest per year on $1,000, every year you get paid $50 in interest. Compound interest does what the name implies. It compounds on itself. So after the first year, you now have $1,050. The year after that, you don't earn 5% on your initial $1,000, you earn 5% on the 1050. This makes the growth parabolic, which means you get richer faster, versus simple interest, which is linear growth. Think of that meme where interviewers go around asking people, double it or give it to the next person. Think about how quickly things would get out of hand if everyone just doubled it. In fact, Warren Buffett, one of the richest men on the planet, has called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. With a net worth of around $150 billion in 2025, you'd think he's been a billionaire almost his whole life, right? Well, he actually didn't become a billionaire until he was 56 years old. The other 99% of his wealth happened after that, largely thanks to compounding. There are 4 main factors that determine how fast your money compounds. The greater any of these elements are, the faster the balance grows. First is obviously your starting amount. To increase this, just stop being poor. My recommendation? Have rich parents. Next is how much you invest over time on top of your initial amount. It's always a good idea to look at how much you spend and see if there's a lot of fat in your budget that you can trim to make more room for investing. Or you can start a side hustle to bring in a little extra dough. The best way it seems to do that these days is begging for money and attention online, which is why I started this channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe, by the way. After that is the rate of return. Savings accounts these days give like 3 or 4%. 10% is the average stock market returns. More on that later. Increase this by gambling or committing securities fraud. The last element is time. Now, giving your money to the banks for like 3, maybe 4% kind of sucks. With inflation averaging 2 to 3% per year, you're practically breaking even. This is where investing comes in handy. And when I say investing here, I'm talking about stocks. I'm not talking about that 5-leg parlay that your friend says is a lock.
Boring!
The Standard & Poor's 500,
You're f***ing poor!
or S&P 500, is a stock market index tracking the stock performance of 500 leading companies listed on stock exchanges in the United States. The S&P 500 is often used as a baseline for stock market performance because it covers a pretty broad range of industries and has a lot of historical price data. The average rate of return is around 10% per year. So as a quick example, if you manage to save $10,000 by the time you're 27 years old, which is pretty good,
You're broke!
and you didn't contribute a single dollar after that until retirement 40 years later, you'd have just shy of $500,000. Now, if instead of spending all your money on hookers and blow, you decided to save just $100 a month, so $1,200 per year, now you can see we are just over $1 million. But Tom, $1 million isn't going to mean shit in 40 years. I'll be wiping my ass with $100 bills. All right, fine. Take out 3% from your yearly return to adjust for inflation, and now we're just over $400,000. Instead of $1 million, we have just over $400K. But that's $400,000 in today's money. So when you're planning for retirement, figure out how much money you'll need in retirement in today's dollars, and then use the compounding interest calculator with 7% instead of 10% to figure out how you'll get there. Now, if you're hearing this and you're asking yourself, well, how do I figure out how much I need for retirement? Let me know in the comments below. There's a lot of research on this topic, and it's actually not as hard as you'd think to figure it out. All right, now, what if instead of $1 million for retirement, we wanted $1 trillion?
$100 billion.
That's 1 million, by the way. Let's try to use some realistic numbers here, shall we? So let's say you start off with 0, nothing.
You're broke!
Now, according to what I've seen online, it seems like $500 per month or $6,000 per year is a reasonable amount to save and invest for the average American. All right, 10% rate of return, and let's see. And we broke the calculator. Let's see what AI has to say. I don't think 249 years is correct. I already did this math ahead of time. I am not actually doing this on the fly. And the answer is 174 years. Let's see. All right, this is a lot of commas here, people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 digits. Yes, it would take you 174 years from zero, saving $500 a month, to become a trillionaire. That's actually not that bad. Compounding is crazy, huh? But Tom, $1 trillion is going to be nothing in 174 years. Okay, inflation adjusted, it's 240 years. Happy? There you go. That's the end of the video. Bye.